The refugee crisis has caused a lot of displacement due to wars. But in addition to that, we have a lot of weather-related disasters and climate-related disasters that will increase the number of refugees. Over 1 billion refugees will be displaced over the next 30 years as a result of the climate crisis and climate disasters. On Wednesday, when I witnessed the news of the tragic and heartbreaking and entirely avoidable and unnecessary lives lost on the Channel. At this time of the year, the weather is cold, the seas are dangerous, and it's particularly treacherous. And unfortunately, it's not all that uncommon that we see these kind of tragedies in the Channel. However, the loss of 27, almost 30 people in the past week is of a scale and magnitude that we have not seen at any time before when people died crossing the Channel. Unfortunately, these problems will continue as the systems that we have, the brutal immigration systems that we have, will continue to discriminate against refugees. More and more people are crossing the Channel because they have no other way to reach our shores. It's very, very important that we all recognise here, and that people that we speak to and educate about this, that asylum is not a crime. It's actually a human right that we all share, and unfortunately many people are not given access to or granted. Unfortunately, because of the way that we operate in our countries, even though it's a human right to be able to get asylum, they can only do that when they reach our shore. And of course that's thousands of miles away from home, with no money, and left in the hands of the smugglers. People are forced into lorries and on boats. Now to a member of Stand Up to Racism, Causa Jan, and she will share with you some thoughts on the refugee crisis and what the kind of work we are doing, and then we'll go back on to some other speakers that have joined us today.
Hi, my name is Causa Jan. I'm also part of the Stand Up to Racism, and I'm also a teacher as well. Like Sarah said, listening to the news, watching the scenes, just took me back to a few years ago, where we said at that time, never again. When we saw the bodies floating in the sea, we said never again. And there was a wave of empathy and sympathy and lots of tokenistic jargon from the government at that point. And here we are again in November, freezing weather, and refugees are climbing onto a dinghy. Let's just stop and think. What would make about 30 people, including a pregnant woman and children, get onto a dinghy to cross the Channel in freezing weather, knowing the perils that might lay ahead? What dangers had they seen? What atrocities had they encountered? They were coming not to come and take our jobs, not to come and, think, oh yes, we'll get houses, etc. But what they were coming for was to ask us to help them. And what is it that the government are trying to project? They are saying that it is not their fault, not our fault, it's the smugglers. The smugglers have been emboldened by our government. Over the past decade, we are seeing the sea is becoming a graveyard. Why aren't we looking and counting the number of lives that have been lost? And what are the government, who is holding our government to account? What is appalling is that we have seen, since the tragedy on Wednesday, there are still more boats coming. Now, if we provided safe passage, if we didn't have this bill that is sort of maligning the asylum seekers, if we all raised our voices and said, and held our government and said, look, we're not going to stand for this. If asylum seekers need to come to our country, let's make it safe for them. If you say that yes, it is the smuggler's fault, if it is the smuggler's fault, why aren't you doing something about it? Who's going to take accountability? Are we going to continually blame and have the blame game? No. This is what is wonderful, that we are all out here on a cold night. We're all cold. Can you imagine those people that came on that boat, what they were feeling? Wet, have died in the sea, and how many more are we going to see? Please, please, stand up to racism. Make sure that we give the message loud and clear that refugees are welcome here. Let's say this together. Refugees! Welcome here! Refugees! Welcome here! Refugees! Welcome here! Thank you, everybody.
Say it clear!
Refugees are welcome here!
Say it loud! Say it clear!
Refugees are welcome here!
Say it louder! Say it clearer!
Refugees are welcome here! Thank you, everybody.
Hello everyone. I'm here on behalf of all the Kurdish people, in whether they're in Europe or still stuck in the Middle East. I have a speech here about the Kurdish people, and I hope you'll enjoy. In our past 100 years, thousands of Kurdish innocent people have died, especially one of the most famous ones in Halabja. 5,000 people were massacred in one day. Along with that, 182,000 Kurds were buried alive, and many of them were young Kurdish girls and women. And at the turn of the 21st century, the ISIS came into the Kurdish region and massacred many Kurdish girls and women because of their religion and their gender. Many young Kurdish girls, boys and women have been genocided by the totalitarian Turkish government in Dersim city. Only a few days ago, Kurdish men, women and children were freezing to death along the Belarusian and Polish borders. Along with that, not even 3 days ago, 31 asylum migrants drowned in the English Channel with their aspirations, dreams stuck in there with them. I hope we can all live in peace and tranquility on this vast area we call Earth. And also, as Kurdish people and Middle Eastern people, we are not poor. We have houses and money, but we lack one important thing: freedom. They sent journalists to the president of North Kurdistan, and later they were killed by the Turkish government. In the east of Kurdistan, the situation is quite similar. They cannot speak for themselves and express their culture. They are being held captive by the Iranian regime, and they need their voices to be heard. That's why I'm here. They also have the right to live in a safe place, and they don't deserve to be suffering in all this pain. Put yourself in this scenario. How do you think you would feel? What would you do, and would you want this happening to you?
I'm from Bahar Women's Association. We're based in Little London, and I'm an ex-refugee and asylum seeker who came from Afghanistan behind Lorry 25 years ago. I was a teenage girl, and I know how hard it is to cross the borders. We played with our life. I was behind lorry, behind train, behind forest, hiding under snow to get to a safe place. And I'm not crazy, to be honest. I'm not here for money or job or a princess bed. I ran away because I lost my parents, my brothers, my cousin during the war. People call it terrorist attack, suicide attack, Daesh, ISI, and blah, blah, blah. But we're not talking about migrants. We're talking about humans. We're talking about people, children, women, vulnerable people who are seeking for better life and safety. Because in Afghanistan, in Kurdistan, around the world, and many more countries, sometimes you have no power. Especially women, girls, and children, they are very vulnerable. So someone who had enough, who lost everything and want to stay alive, is that a crime? I don't think so. So I lost everything and come here to have a better life. As a girl, live and have my right to education. To have what I want to be, not a housewife. Is that wrong? So why people don't support us? Why government don't support us? As a refugee, I'm here, I'm doing 24/7 volunteering, supporting vulnerable people from around the world. Same other groups, charities, refugees, they're doing many hard work to show and fit in the community, but they still called migrants. Why? We lost our country, but we find our home here. This is our home, and no one has right to say no to us.
Thank you, Katie. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out in what is a bitterly cold evening. So, checking some of the WhatsApp groups that I'm part of, we are astounded at the lack of compassion from the British and the French governments. There are solutions. I'm not an expert in foreign policy, in immigration, in logistics, I'm a drama teacher, but the solutions are simple. Provide a facility where asylum claims can be processed, where asylum seekers can make their claim without having to put their life in their hands. There is no reason, no justifiable reason why anyone should be making that journey on a small boat in November and December.
I think a lot of us are in a position where we can't really comprehend the level of suffering that people have to go through.